The government and automotive original equipment manufacturers are working towards accelerating the development of manufacturing capabilities for new energy vehicles in South Africa. Naamsa, now known as the Automotive Business Council, has confirmed in its discussions with the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition on this issue, and is keen on an early review of the South African Automotive Masterplan to incorporate the latest global developments with new energy vehicles. Well, to tell us a little bit more about this, I'm now joined by Mike Mabaso, who's the CEO of Naamsa. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, Mr. Mabaso. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us, Peter.
All right, so everything seems to be being disrupted as technologies come into play. And we had thought that Africa was probably going to take its time in switching towards electric vehicles. But that plan looks like it's being disrupted for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Africa is actually taking a lead, in many frontiers, particularly in terms of the new technologies that we are seeing that are emerging globally. Because remember, many of the raw materials that we are using in the vehicle manufacturing process, whether it is battery technology or any other biggest technologies that we've seen over a very long time, most of those raw materials actually come from Africa. And we've taken a decision, obviously, as a continent, that we certainly need to be able to become front and center in many of the conversations that we are having currently in relation to this particular revolution. And South Africa in particular is also not going to be standing still, but we want to obviously claim our place so that we can really be able to make sure that we contribute quite progressively to this new evolution of electromobility.
All right. So the story in South Africa, though, is that actually it's these international original equipment manufacturers that have plants here that are manufacturing vehicles, most of them for export, although we do end up with some of those. So are we in a situation where if we're not ready on the ground here, our plants here will be manufacturing for export only?
Well, not necessarily. I think our capacity to export, in fact, and to manufacture for the export market is actually a vote of confidence in African products, because the rest of the world is coming to Africa to look for very good quality products. Because remember, Peter, previously we were made to believe that products that are coming out of Africa are inferior, they're not reliable, and so on. And we're beginning to kill that particular myth, at every turn, and we are producing fantastic and very good quality products, particularly in our vehicles, because South Africa currently we are exporting our vehicles and our components to 147 different countries around the world. And if anyone were to believe anything less, we certainly, comparing with the best around the world, and will continue to produce these vehicles, not just only for the South African market, but certainly for the global market as a whole.
All right. So, I mean, let's be clear about when we say our cars, our vehicles, these are international organizations, though, aren't they? Where are the African cars designed, made with an African name?
Well, I think that process and that discussion is definitely on the table, and we agree certainly that these vehicles traditionally and for a very long time have a global DNA, but that is changing. I mean, look at, for an example, one of the pioneers of electric vehicles evolution in the world. I mean, Elon Musk is a South African. He was born here in Pretoria, and we are very proud that he was able to drive the evolution that we've seen globally, and we believe very strongly that Africans are definitely ready to be able to take their place in terms of producing not just vehicles, but certainly cutting-edge technology that leads the world over.
All right. Tell us a little bit about this Automotive Masterplan and where energy cars fit in, because petrol stations are going to start to have these docking stations for cars, right, to get powered up with electricity. we have energy challenges in South Africa. How are we going to balance all of these equations so that we have a lot of electric cars that are able to dock into these chargers?
Well, look, I think we're looking at different options naturally because we cannot obviously rely on one option currently that we have in South Africa, which is mainly Eskom, because I think a lot of people also argue, quite very rightly so, that you cannot obviously on the one hand produce energy efficient vehicles and then power them with dirty coal. For an example. So we are certainly engaging currently with a number of independent power producers because there's no reason why, for an example, the majority of our charging stations cannot be powered through solar panels, through other energy sources that we have in the country. So we are certainly looking at different options that are definitely available in the market currently in South Africa, so that when we deploy these opportunities, we're able to definitely look at different sources of power. So that we can really be able to make sure that these vehicles, as we start rolling them out at an industrial scale, we are able to make sure that we are not impacted negatively by things like load shedding.
I suppose then in the interim, we're probably going to see a lot of hybrid cars that are both combustion and electric.
Absolutely. So Africa, for an example, we are certainly gearing ourselves up for a pretty much prolonged introduction of new energy vehicles, and hybrid cars are already in the market. We are going to be promoting and stimulating, the use of hybrid cars more and more. You'd recall, for an example, two of our major manufacturers, Ford Motor Company and Toyota, at the beginning of this year, made some announcements in terms of transforming some of their production lines so that they can be able to begin to produce hybrid vehicles in South Africa. And then over time, we're hoping that in the next 5 years, as we renew our production lines, we will certainly be able to now introduce fully electric vehicles into the market.
All right, very exciting times. We certainly hope that we'll see more manufacturers across the continent and also original African cars being created. Mr. Mabaso, I hope to talk to you again soon. This is a conversation I'd like us to keep in people's mind's eye. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Peter.
All right, that's Mike Mabaso, the CEO of Naamsa. As South Africa and Africa generally prepares itself for an electric future, but there will be processes along the way.